What's up, everyone? It's Brendan from All This Filth and Hornography here, also with Andrew from Hornography, and we're here to welcome you to the very first ever Hornography podcast. We've been thinking about this for a while now.
Yeah.
This is a podcast made by metal fans for metal fans. We're going to be talking about Perth Metal, Hornography, obviously, what's going on internationally, locally, interstate, everything metal related. So address the people, Andrew. Tell them why we're doing this.
So like you said, it's been a long time coming. I guess we've been sort of working on this for quite a while. And I think initially when we sort of came together to work on Hornography, we had a few ideas that we wanted to kind of put into place that some old ideas, bring it back, and some new ideas that's never been done before. Obviously, the podcast is something that's brand new. But because everyone else is doing it, I thought, why not do it, And also, it's a bit of a tool as well to kind of promote the monthly shows every month as well, instead of just putting social media posts up all the time and things like that, the mailing list and things like that. How about, have a visual and audio sort of experience and kind of like have a bit of a chat about the music scene at large.
And then we can promote upcoming local releases, Australian releases, Perth releases as well, which is good. Which obviously is going to help promote the scene, which is the whole point of Hornography. Obviously, when Dicey and Cabba, shout out to Dicey and Cabba, started Hornography, was it 7 years ago now?
2018.
2018,
so
back in 2018, they ran it for that very purpose, and Andrew took it over, what year did you
2023.
2023.
Then you joined beginning of 2025.
Yeah, so last year was my first full year doing the MC job.
At the Milk Bar as well. First year at the Milk Bar, first year for you.
A lot of firsts for Hornography, and obviously this is a first. So thank you for joining us. We're just happy to be here and happy to talk metal because that's what we like to do.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing we need to talk about is obviously the first show of the year for 2026, the All Aussie Metal Night, which we have been doing traditionally every year for the last few years.
Yeah, in January, yeah.
Yeah, and we've obviously got a stacked lineup. What do you got? We got Dripped, Bile Cannon, who haven't done a Hornography show in a little while.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Cytopia. We've got a new band, actually, Slaughter the Soul.
Slaughter of the Soul or Slaughter the Soul?
Slaughter the Soul.
Slaughter the Soul.
Yeah, I got that mixed up a couple of times myself.
Because Slaughter of the Souls are at the Gates album.
I know. But they actually are a bit of a melodic death metal / deathcore kind of band. So a bunch of young new kids on the block, and they're going to be doing their first Hornography show.
Yep.
And the other band is, I'm just trying to think who that last band is now.
This is terrible.
Oxen.
Yeah,
that's which one of the members is also in Bile Cannon as well.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
What date is it on, and where is it?
Last day of the month, January 31st, and it's at the Milk Bar, which is going to be our new home. Is
that a Friday or a Saturday?
Saturday.
It's a Saturday. Yeah, so usually we're on Fridays, but we're
back on Saturdays this year for the most part. So
we got to just keep up to date with the socials for some Fridays, some Saturdays, because last year was mostly exclusively Fridays because the Civic didn't really trust us to full crowd, but we did, and here we are. So.
Well, also it's because we changed venues and it was kind of a last minute thing and all that. So, but shout out to the Milk Bar. They've been nothing but supporters of us and helping us out in every way possible. So shout out to Greg Sanders in particular as well, who does all the bookings. Yeah. Milk Bar. We're pretty stoked about the venue because all the production. I think everyone that's been coming out to the shows has been saying the same thing. It's been
they've stepped up the production at the Milk Bar / I call it the
turnouts have been solid as well. So
turnouts have been good, but they've got that they've got the projector screen and the updated PA setup and stuff.
Yeah, and all the lights and just everything is just about it. It's just exactly what we want Hornography to be, bigger and better, So, but yeah, the first show of the month, January 31st, Saturday at the Milk Bar. With 5 bands, 7 o'clock doors, and you can get your tickets at OzTix as well. Save a little bit of, a couple of dollars.
And through the Hornography website as well?
And through the Hornography website as well, hornography-perth.com. And you can also listen to the podcast through that website as well, by the way. So this will be on YouTube and Spotify, and then later on down the track, we'll sort of branch out into other podcasts.
Oh, good. I was going to ask where this was available.
Yeah, Spotify and YouTube. At the moment, I think mostly for YouTube.
Maybe we're just doing it for ourselves. Just watch it back. Yeah.
No.
Fair enough.
And obviously, we got a bunch of giveaways as well as usual. So
yes, the Hornography merch giveaways.
And it's also going to be keeping
thanks to Soundworks Touring.
Soundworks Touring, yeah. But it's all going to be Aussie stuff, so all local band stuff and all that. So keeping it with the Aussie theme. But it's the first show of the year always does really well. Even when Dicey and Cabba were doing it, the first show was always the big one because everyone sort of was getting back into the thing after the holidays and all that kind of stuff. So if I remember even from way back, the first Hornography show of the year was always like not necessarily the best, but always the biggest one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
it usually does pretty well because people are sort of starving for a bit of metal. Because as we know, December, January tends to be slightly starved of tours because it's a hard time to tour with the prices of so airfares and what have you. So
That's right, yeah.
so there's less gigs that time of year, but getting towards the end of the month, some people are really itching to get their metal fixed. So come on out to Hornography.
But speaking of
if
tours,
you're in Perth, that is.
Speaking of tours and shows, there's a whole bunch coming up in January and February. But I think the first one we need to talk about is the Froth and Fury show.
Ah, yes, Froth and Fury.
At the is it HBF Stadium or HPC?
No,
it says HPC.
So it used to be called Challenge Stadium
That's
back in the day,
out
Mount Claremont. It's now called the Perth HPC, which is High Performance
But was it
Centre.
ever HBF Stadium though? Or?
No,
I always call it.
Yeah,
HBF
no, it was.
Stadium, yeah.
No, HBF. Yes, because HBF Park is where Perth Glory
the other
played.
one, yeah, it's right.
So it was HBF Stadium for a while, but sponsorship deals or whatever changed. Anyways, it's in Mount Claremont in Perth, Western Australia. Obviously, Froth and Fury, if you're unfamiliar, if you're from overseas or interstate, started in Adelaide.
Number of years ago now.
In South Australia, a couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
And this year's the first year it's coming to Perth, and we are stoked to have it on. The guys from Soundworks Touring, shout out to Dicey and Brad, are bringing it over and are putting it on. So there's a lot of hard work, and but that's another one that's made by fans for fans. WA, as we're so isolated over here, as you'd know. We tend to miss out on a lot of tours and shows. Yeah. Although, to be fair, we do get a lot as well. So it's not as bad as people make out, but we do miss certain things. But we haven't had a real heavy metal sort of festival since
what we've been
Soundwave in 2014, I think it was, at the Joondalup Arena.
So that's why it's really crucial that everyone out there supports this thing, buys their tickets and attends this thing, because we want to have this come every year. We want this to be the annual metal festival, like your Soundwave and your Big Day Outs and all that kind of stuff, because like you said, it hasn't been happening for quite some time. So we really need everyone on board with this. And again, it's a great lineup. I mean, look at some of the bands.
So check it out, right? There's something for everybody on here. You got Polaris, for the metalcore people and stuff.
Huge band, by the way.
Huge, massive. I mean, we got the good thing is a lot of not just local Aussie, but there's some big Aussie bands on here, but also international bands. Yep. So we got Polaris, In Heart's Wake, if you're into that metalcore sort of style. The thing for me, and I bought my tickets day one for Soulfly and Nailbomb.
That's my two favourites as well, to be honest.
I never thought I'd ever get a chance to see Nailbomb. Max Cavalera obviously doing double duties.
Yeah.
And I am absolutely pumped to see Soulfly and Nailbomb.
And it's been a while since Soulfly been here. 15, 16 years, I think it was the last time
2006 they were here or something?
No, 2010.
Okay.
2010.
Oh, yes, 2010 I was there.
And I was at that show, I know. And,
but they've been to Australia, but again, not Perth since then. They did Good Things Festival a couple of years ago. Yeah. But, I mean, so you got Soulfly and Nailbomb, absolutely stoked. There's Abbott as well for the black metal fans out there. And I believe he's doing a...
He's doing some Immortal special thing as well.
Immortal set. Is it a whole album or is it just an Immortal set?
I can't remember now, but I know it's some anniversary thing or something, I think. Some special edition of Immortal anyways.
Anyways, check it out. So there's Abbott. And if you're not into metal, there's also Frenzal Rom, Lagwagon.
Yep.
I mean, there's so much for everyone here. You got Ocean Sleeper, Archspire. Was it Archspire? Archspire?
I always wondered about that, actually. I love the band, but I never know if it's Archspire or Archspire.
Someone
let us know.
Let us know. Is it Archspire or Archspire? Yeah. Anyways, they're Teth Deck freaks. Everyone's frothing for that.
Yeah.
You got Fit for an Autopsy for your deathcore fans. Obviously, one of Australia's and Perth's biggest musical exports, Voyager.
Yep. Yeah.
Voyager playing pretty exclusively at the moment. Shout out to Danny. Hope his treatment is going well. Who else is there? We got Body Snatcher. Aborted.
Aborted would be good.
Did Shai Hulud pulled out, didn't they? Or was it Private Function that pulled out? Shai Hulud pulled out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there was a band recently that pulled out. Which
they were replaced by Crosscheck, local
right,
hardcore band.
Exactly.
And so there's different lineups for Adelaide. So the main bands that we've just mentioned are all going mostly going to Adelaide and Perth. But in Perth, obviously, we got some great local bands coming as well. But then again, we got some good interstate bands. Nicolas Cage Fighter, Abramelin, Freedom of Fear. I
Yep.
saw them last year open for Death Clock.
Oh yeah, that's
Yep.
right. Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Our friends in Iniquitous Monolith, shout out to Brendan Knock
Yeah.
and the boys there. Yomi Shipper playing, Patient 67, also from Perth. Pincer Plus, shout out to Josh, good dude. Rat King are playing. Silent Night, shout out to Stu McGill. Stu McGill, Stormrider Touring.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some power metal there. So there's something for everyone.
There's a bit. That's what's great about this one is like it's a mixed bill. So no matter what you like,
Yep.
there's going to be something there for someone.
Like I said, get on board, man. Like
Yeah.
you know, like there's heaps of there's punk, there's metal, there's going to be tattoo stands, there's going to be rides, wrestling, I think as well.
Wrestling, really?
Well, I think that they're doing it in Adelaide. I don't know if they're doing it in Perth, but
Right.
it's sort of like a carnival for weirdos
Yeah.
and metalheads and stuff. And
Which reminds me of Big Day Out. Actually, they had a bit of that as well. So Soundwave
should.
didn't have as much of that, but Big Day Out definitely did back in the day. I remember had all kinds of stuff, rides and
so
that
there's
stuff,
going to be
so-
all that, food vendors as well.
Yeah.
Also, just a shout out to my own band, All This Filth. We are
Yes, ATF. I'll talk
ATF.
about it.
Go
ATF.
on.
It's good to have ATF on the band because on the bill because one of the premier metal bands I kind of feel so but
Thank
all
you.
those bands on there, all the local
Yep.
bands on there are some of the top local Perth bands. So if you're actually watching or listening to this and you're not so familiar with the local bands, come down early and check
come
all
early,
these
yeah.
bands out as well. So
because like some of these local bands, people tend to not look at what's in their own backyard because you just assume because they're not, signed to Nuclear Blast Records that means they're not good. That is not so. Australia per head per capita has some of the best metal bands going at the moment.
and it's always been at least with my case, like some of my favorite bands have always been underground bands.
Yeah.
Always been like
So we
that,
got a great underground scene, and if you don't believe me, come check it out. Like I said, there's great underground bands from over east. Like I said, Freedom of Fear, Valhalla, Nicolas Cage Fighter. We actually played with them in Melbourne when we played at
the Killfest. Yeah,
in Kilmore. So it'd be cool to see those guys
And
again.
they're doing a full scale tour as well.
Yeah,
so
they're
this
on
is
a they're
part
a
of the
full
thing.
Australian tour. So yeah, and it's really expensive to tour. So get on out and support these bands coming over. But like I said, support all this field if you can. Support all the local Perth bands, Silent Night, Iniquitous Monolith, Pincer Plus, etc., because it's great to have these sort of international bands come, and it provides opportunities to be seen by a larger audience for some of us local bands. So. Yeah, because we work hard. We try to get out there. We try to go east as often as we can, go on tour. But this festival is going to be cranking. And Saturday the 24th, Saturday the 24th of January, Perth High Performance Centre out in Mount Claremont. Get your tickets from frothandfuryfest.com. Like I said, thanks to Soundworks Touring and the guys from Froth and Fury Fest Adelaide. Jason North, etc. So yeah, get on down. That is a massive festival.
Should be a good day. And and obviously the week after that will be Hornography, so you can come down and kind of have a post-celebration kind of thing and sort of just talk about the festival, what your experiences were like and stuff. So and hopefully if a good turnout happens on the day, we'll see it again next year. So
yeah, I mean, so that's the aim. If enough tickets are sold, I happen to know if enough tickets are sold, they're going to bring it back next year. But if not enough sold, then finances don't match up, then this may be the first and last time it's in Perth.
Yeah.
And I hate to be doom and gloom, but that's just the reality of the music business at the moment. So if you guys are, even if you're not so keen on some of those bands, just get out and support it anyways, because next year they might bring some of your favorite bands. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it.
And like I said, it's great. And I think we should address also, for those who don't know what Hornography is, because I just realized we've just started talking about Hornography. Like,
Well, I think most of the people listening or watching this now will probably be already familiar with it. But yeah, you're right. Like for those who maybe just turn onto this by accident or something. Well, Hornography, I guess, like we mentioned, started in 2018 by Dicey and Cabba. Dicey known for obviously with his work with Soundworks Touring.
Yep.
And Cabba known as being with Claim the Throne. And what was the other band he was with?
Who, Cabba? Tom Thumb. He was in
Tom
Tom Thumb.
and,
a whole bunch of bands.
Yeah.
What was that other band he did?
That's what I mean. Harvest.
Harvest Trail.
That's right. Yeah, Harvest Trail. Yeah.
Harvest Trail. But Dicey has been in bands too. He was
Yeah,
in
of course.
Pathogen for a
Pathogen,
while.
yeah,
He did
yeah.
heaps. He did Choke.
Yep.
He's
of
in that
bands,
band
but-
from because he spends half his time in Indonesia now. He's in a band from Resume from
Oh, okay,
Indonesia.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
playing a festival in
Yeah.
Indonesia, anyways. So,
But
yeah,
anyway,
shout
that
out.
was that was the beginning of Hornography 2018. The idea was to really kind of put some spark into the local metal scene. It was kind of becoming a little stale, I remember, and sort of Hornography kind of pushed it back into
I don't
the
think it was
spotlight
stale.
again.
I think it was more just the fact that, like,
Well, it's becoming a little routine, I guess.
Well,
to
I
some
think
extent,
more to the point, it was sort of like a good place, a monthly metal club where people who are into metal can go, and regardless of what bands are playing, because the monthly metal club is essentially a gig. We do giveaways, we do all sorts of contests. We have a Halloween show, Christmas show.
But also the
etc.
idea as well, not just for the music and the sort of giveaways, but also just the community sort of side of it.
Somewhere to go.
So
like
yeah.
if you like metal. If you like if heavy music, whether it be death metal, hardcore, all sorts, we do all subgenres, everything under the heavy music umbrella. You can come to Hornography any month, and there'll be something.
And meet like-minded people as well.
Like-minded people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people I know that who are regulars now at Hornography who just come by themselves and have made a bunch of friends and they attend every month now. So
I've met a ton of people there at Hornography,
same.
So
and then for bands, if you're in a band, it's really good to get involved in the scene as well. Don't just show up to the gigs that you're playing. Show up to other gigs. Be involved.
also, it's a good way if you're in a band as well to kind of do a bit of networking, connect with other bands and stuff.
Yep.
If you're trying to put on shows or trying to get onto a show and you don't know anyone in the scene, Hornography is definitely a place to do that stuff as
And
well.
just on that, if you're in a band and you're a promoter and you would like to promote your shows, hit us up. We will promote your gigs as well, because we are about promoting, whether it be an international show, a national show. We've done a lot of collaborations with Soundworks, touring with
Metropolis touring,
Metropolis,
like everyone. We've done with
So,
everyone,
I mean, whether you're top level or mid-tier or low level, you're underground, hit us up. We will promote your show.
Not just shows as well, but if you've got new music, like releases, albums, EPs, singles, anything like that kind of stuff.
Let us know.
Send all the stuff to us, email it to us, or message us, and we'll add it to all our mailing lists and our social media posts and all that kind of thing. So, and then we'll mention it on the podcast as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We might even do some album reviews.
Yeah, you can do that.
Coming up, we'll have a listen and be like, this is what we think of this album.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, at the moment, we're kind of just starting out with the podcast. We don't know exactly where it's going to go, but we're kind of just starting somewhere and kind of seeing how it goes.
To be honest, we're just winging it.
Yeah, we are winging it, yeah. But to be honest, that's how I've always done things, though. I've always tried to just wing it, because even when I was doing radio and when I was because for those who don't know, I guess we can share a bit of both of our backstories on how we got involved in music.
Yeah.
But when I was back in the media world, like when I was doing interviews and stuff like that, when I was talking to even like some of the biggest names in metal, whatever, there was no script or anything like that. I was just winging it, because I kind of feel like that improv conversations feels more natural than a sort of like scripted sort of like, bullet point question and answer kind of thing, So,
I think you can have sort of a structure and rough ideas of what
it depends
questions.
on your personality. I think.
But like to have this is what I sort of half want to talk about.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we did.
Idea,
we've got an idea of what we want to mention, and then we're just sort of riffing on that.
It's easy with this though, because this is going to be once a month, this podcast. So like the week of the monthly shows, it's the idea to have the release date, and I guess the idea is always going to be to talk about the monthly show.
Yep.
So that's always going to be the sort of the stepping stone, and then we go off on a tangent off of from that, So, so there's always going to be stuff to talk about easily.
Well, because metal doesn't stop, heavy music doesn't stop. It's all metal all the time here in Hornography. So. And like I said, if you've got bands that you want us to check out, hit us up.
Yeah.
Hit us up. Just send us an email. Send us a comment on the socials. We'll check them out, whether they be local, international, interstate. You got friends over east who want to come play over in Perth?
Yeah, we'd love to have more Eastern State bands come through, actually.
We were looking to do that again. Dicey and Cabot did that a couple times with some interstate bands, and we'll definitely do that again.
We had a couple of close calls last year, but they just never panned out and stuff.
Yeah, it's really expensive to get here.
Yeah.
But I did it. I brought over a Disgust for Filthy Christmas that year.
Right,
that wasn't a Hornography show, but it was a Filthy Christmas show, so... and that was wicked at the Rosemount. That was a great show. Great band. So we're looking for bands from Perth, bands from Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, wherever.
Yeah.
Darwin, Tasmania, wherever you're from.
I don't see a lot of those.
Hell,
bands
even if you're
coming through.
overseas and you come into Australia, hit us up. We'll help
I actually
you out.
have been hit up by an international band before, but just the sheer cost of it.
yeah.
I was like, so. All right, so let's get into this. Before we wrap it up, let's get into our history of music. Just sort of like, because everyone kind of knows Dicey and Cabot from back in the day. You know, a lot of people know their history and
In
stuff.
Perth, anyway. Oh, and in Australia.
Yeah,
Glenn
but I
Dyson,
think for some
very
people,
well
they might not know. I mean, they'll probably be more familiar with you, but I guess there's some stuff that they might not know. So go back even before ATF. Like, how did you actually get involved in like the music stuff, and then what made you actually want to be involved in the music stuff?
Ah, okay, that's interesting. So basically, I guess it was when I was in high school, started getting into music. I had
So what we're talking about? What kind of bands we're talking
okay,
about?
so I'll tell the story I always tell everyone about how I got into most of the music that I got into now. Okay, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that probably shows my age, but whatever.
I go back further than that.
Yeah, well.
Well, to be fair, Dicey goes back even further than that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it always goes back somewhere.
There's always someone older and younger than you, so you know. But yeah, there's always one or two kids, that had the U-Butte computers, or they were up to date with the modern stuff coming out.
Yeah.
And I always remember I had this friend, Paul Donkin, in high school. He was always sort of on the cutting edge. He always knew the new bands coming out, and he'd start off every sentence, like when he was talking about music, he'd come up to me and he'd be like, "Dude, have you heard of this band? They're called Rammstein. They're from Germany. There's like 6 of them, and they like fuck each other with dildos and they shoot flames from their face." And of course, as an impressionable, 15-year-old, I'm like, sign me up. Let me get onto that.
Yeah.
And so I checked out, obviously, Rammstein, and the same dude, Paul Donkin, come up to him one day and was like, "Dude, have you heard of this band Slipknot?" Now, keep in mind, Slipknot, 1998, would just come out with their first album. And he's like, "Dude, have you heard of this band Slipknot? There's like 20 of them, and they wear masks and beat each other up." And I was like, "Oh my God, I need to be involved in this." And so, yeah, through him and through my mate Amir, who used to download everything onto data discs, send me burnt CDs full of like music that got into like Rammstein, Soulfly, Slipknot, then through that Sepultura and Machine Head,
Yep.
they
That
were
was
the
all the
big
stuff that I
Fear
grew up as well,
Factory,
yeah.
man, all the stuff, and then
So it's mostly just through mates then, like just friends and stuff that sort of just turned you on to music.
Exactly, and that's what's great about Hornography as well, is you come down and you can just talk music, whatever music you get into.
That's how I discover a lot of music, even still to this day. Like people tell me, like check this out or whatever. It's like
because now you've got you got your Spotify's with the algorithms, and it'll tell you this and that. But there's nothing quite as cool as someone. I don't know. I call me old school, but like just having a discussion when you get passionate people together discussing an artist, a band, or whatever, and be like, "Dude, have you heard this? If you like this band, well, check this band out." And sometimes you go check them out and you're like, not my thing. But sometimes you do and you're like, holy shit,
especially if
where's
it's
the thing?
with people that you know what their musical interests are, and you kind of like, if they're raving on about something, then chances are you'll probably like it. If you share the same sort of like interest in the same.
I mean,
style of
so
music.
when I was in high school, a lot of my friends were into actually like sort of skate punk, Lagwagon, Millencolin, Offspring and stuff. And so I was kind of into that, but then I got into the heavier stuff, got into metal. And then through there, I started going to all ages gigs and sneaking into 18+ gigs. Some of them Dicey's gigs, some of them Aiden from.
But that's what's
Patterson and
interesting,
stuff.
because you mentioned a good point there about like sort of starting from one point and then going into it, and that story is so common with metalheads where no one ever just jumps into metal. Like it's always a journey.
It's a self-discovery journey.
It
You
always
figure out
is.
who you are.
That's why the people
it
who
changed
don't.
my life. To be honest, it really changed my life.
Definitely,
because it changed. It changed. Like, obviously, I identified with it. I vibed with it. I felt it. Like there was the vibrations, and I connected with it on some level. Then I connected with the lyrics as well, and then I started dressing differently.
Yeah, you just sort of accommodate all that culture.
Because it was sort of, it matched my worldview and the anger, the aggression, and like so I got into it, and all of a sudden I'm wearing Slipknot shirts, Mudvayne shirts. Listening to Cold Chamber and Spine Shank and stuff, and next thing you know, you're smashing out Lamb of God and Chimera, and you just get heavier and heavier and heavier.
That's the thing; it just gets heavier and heavier.
You get into those gateway bands, and don't get me wrong, I still love those bands, and it's still some of my favorite.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like people kind of assume, well, if you've changed over time, like getting into different bands, that you've kind of just forgotten about the other ones. It's like no, all you're doing is just adding. At least how I do it is you're just adding on to what you've already got into.
yeah, because I couldn't get like if you got into metal, right, as an umbrella term, why you would just stick like you might have your favorite subgenre of metal. Because I remember I went through a stage where I thought my favorite subgenre of metal is thrash metal, for example.
Yeah.
And then I went through I'm more into melodic death metal when I was starting to get into like
In
In
Flames and
Flames
Arch
and
Enemy and all that. Yeah.
Soil Work,
Yep.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah.
But like you said, you just add it on. You just adding it on, and
Yeah.
it's like there's no rule that says you can't. You got to stop listening to
No.
Slipknot because you're listening to
Of course, yeah.
Cannibal Corpse or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
why not
Just
do both?
add-
Like
just-
they say in that taco ad, why not do both? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's the great thing, and again, like I said, with Hornography, we cater to all the subgenres, whether you're into power metal or you're into
Yeah, we have been trying
tech
to
death.
kind of like obviously as many people know, every month is a different theme. So and
Well,
that's
we
always
try,
been
yeah.
like that since the day one anyway. Make it different every month, you know. And obviously the bands will match those themes, or we try to match those themes anyway, you know. So there's going to be a hardcore night, there's going to be a thrash metal night, there's going to be a whatever, you know what I mean? So bit of everything, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and that's funny though, because like that story that everyone has of like how they got into metal, it's always, like I said, an evolution. It's a gradual thing because no one ever jumps into metal straight away, and that's why the ones who don't like it, they go like, because you got to start from somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Here's a pro tip: if you got a mate who's not into metal, the first band you show them should not be Archspire. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't be some like blistering tech death metal. And I'm not. That's no slander on Archspire. I mean, maybe. But like,
if you're lucky, I mean,
you got to ease people into it, sort of
that's
thing.
why bands like your Metallicas and whatever are the ones that
Disturbed and
like
Limp Bizkit,
those are your gateway bands.
Gateway bands, you know. Linkin
it's like
Park
easier.
was huge. Linkin Park was massive.
Linkin Park was a big gateway band for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah.
And so was Slipknot, because they were.
But Slipknot were kind of on the heavier side of things.
Think about how heavy, like, well, not so much now, but how heavy they were. But they also had the melodic, catchy choruses and stuff.
Yeah.
Although
the first two albums were heavier than everything else after that, though.
agreed,
In all honesty,
agreed.
They started out pretty heavy and then kind of went more sort of, you know, melodic and all that stuff, you know. So
yeah, we can debate that to the castle. You know, I always have a special place for them.
Yeah, I got into them on the first album because I thought they were, because I wasn't a big new metal fan, right?
Yeah.
But there were a few select bands like your Slipknot and System of a Down who were doing something different that was standing out amongst all. Because like you have to admit, by the end of the new metal era, there were so many bands doing it. We got to a saturation
Here's the thing,
point.
I think that every subgenre of metal has that,
Yep,
right?
100%. Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
what you have, in my opinion, is you've got your early adopters. So you got your early bands that are the pioneers, the innovators that start something
So
new
your
off.
thrash and death and all that kind of
So
stuff.
in any subgenre, whether it be a death metal band
Yeah.
with your obituaries and your
Yep. And they all went did the same thing. It all became saturated. Everyone started sounding
and
the
so
same,
and then
you
like
know.
so you got your originals, then you got some really good second sort of wave bands,
Yep.
and then like
Everyone
you said,
else
it
started
becomes
doing that,
saturated because then you get like 20 different versions of the same band.
But then it comes around again. Everything sort of comes and does a like a 360, and they all come back again at some point.
and there's no shade in that. If you're like a massive Lamb of God fan and you are in a band and you're all Lamb of God fans and you all play Lamb of God style music, there's absolutely no shame in that.
Wear your influences on your sleeves if you have
wear
to.
your influences in your sleeve,
Yeah.
but like maybe
At some point,
change it
you
up,
know,
like
yeah.
use your multiple influences hopefully to adopt a new style and develop your own thing.
I always find the people who have like a more varied influence
Yeah.
kind of come out with a much more unique and interesting sort of result in music.
Well, then,
you know?
yeah.
Rather than if you just listen to one style of music, your output's going to be just one style
Yeah,
of
yeah,
music. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So
Again, no shade in that, but like
Yeah.
to each their own. So but yeah, the people that come out with something sort of they take influences from all over the place and they mix it together and it becomes something new. That's that you invent new genres that way.
especially nowadays. Nowadays, there seems to be a bit of a hybrid kind of thing going on with a lot of bands, like the newer bands coming out, you know, and they're sort of mixing not just metal genres, but mixing other genres outside of metal as well.
Well, I mean, that's really how new metal started, right? There
was a bit of that, yeah.
There was a little bit of like, let's mix some rap and rock, and
but now it's gone crazy though. It's like it's a lot of like pop and rap and sort of like whatever, you know what I mean?
You
like
got that Sleep Token.
Yeah, there's a
type
bit of
stuff,
everything going on, and I guess people like that stuff, you know. So
which is fine, it's evolution, right? So like, you trace it all the way back from Black Sabbath to your Iron Maidens and Judas Priest to your thrash bands, Bay Area, Metallica and
In the '90s, kind of like that's when the '90s. I think I kind of feel like it started to kind of diverge a bit more. Sort of like different subgenres started coming out.
Well, once the internet hit, then there
Well,
was
yeah, for sure,
more chance for your bands to be discovered.
Yeah.
Like the thing before the internet was you had scenes. So you had your Bay Area thrash, stock
That doesn't seem to be much of a thing these days.
The Gothenburg sound, and etc. etc.
That's
New York hardcore scene and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's because now, as soon as you put it online, someone on the other side of the world can hear that, and if they like that, they might take influence from that style.
Yeah.
So instead of just the local bands in that area having and playing that style, anyone in the world can hear it, and so it's a bit more diluted, but. Is that a bad thing?
It's a good and bad thing. You're losing something like as far as the physical side of it, but then there's you come up with all these great bands that are now coming out.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, So there's good and bad to it all, but
because obviously when I started getting into music back in the day, it was all about listening to the radio and TV, and it was all the physical world. You know what I mean? It was all that stuff. So that's all you could get, and all you could listen to was whatever you could get, but it was available
metal
to you.
Magazines like Metal Hammer and such, and Terrorizer and whatnot.
Listen,
that's how you
read
get
all
the
of it.
Information on the bands,
which is weird when you think about it now, because like that stuff would have been written weeks beforehand. By the time they came out, it was if the band was already moved on from that stuff. You know what
definitely.
I mean?
I mean, now it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
As soon as a band does anything, you know about it next day.
Yeah.
Or as they're doing it.
That's it.
I mean,
But that's the world that I got into with music. Obviously, same with you. As a kid, getting into music through friends and stuff like that. But when I started getting involved in music, it was my back door was through the media. So I used to work with magazines, online magazines now, I guess you could call them, or webzines or whatever. And that's when I started doing reviews and interviews and things like that, and that whole world of PR and marketing and stuff like that. So because I get asked all the time, well, what instrument do you play? What band you're in? It's I've never been in the stage guy. I've always been the behind the scenes kind of guy. Okay. I always preferred that, and so because of that, I've had the opportunity to talk to so many great people, from your guys from Pantera and your Megadeth to even your newest bands and all that stuff. Members of Slipknot, Joey Jordison,
Flynn, you did as well.
Rob Flynn, talked to him. Dave Mustaine was probably one of the biggest ones that I've done. Right. But some of the Max Cavalera I've talked to the most. He's the most common one that I've talked to.
He seems like he makes himself available to
he's a
media.
very hands-on, he's not a rock star. He's just a regular dude who produces some of the greatest music,
I think that's the good thing about metal is a lot of these they're just like us, genuinely.
That's what I found.
Literally just metal fans.
Occasionally
who just happen to make metal music.
Occasionally you do run into some rock stars, but for the most part,
I've had run-ins, no names mentioned, but yeah.
But for the most part, most of the metal community worldwide is pretty down to earth. It also depends where they're from around the world as well.
So there's a lot of really genuine people.
That's right.
That you can literally just go up and talk metal because that's what we're all about.
Yeah,
so,
that's it, and the thing is about it, the metal community as well, not just from a local point of view, but worldwide. The one thing that everyone has in common is music. It's the one thing, with all the stuff that's happening around the world, this is the one thing that kind of always brings people together. And you can see it when you're at a gig, whether it's a local gig or an international gig or whatever. Everyone's there for the same reason. They're all enjoying the same experience, and there's something to be said about that, which I kind of feel is not always in other industries or fields or whatever.
Or in other genres of music as well.
Well, even I suppose in other genres of music, I guess.
Well, when I was I went to TAFE. Years ago to do an advanced diploma of music business. I was obviously already in all this filth at the time, so I was looking to up my business skills for the music industry. And I was at TAFE, and I remember one of my lecturers said to me specifically about metal, because metal, as much as we can look at Wacken and massive festivals and such, you got to remember that metal is still quite a small genre of music compared to your global. It is an underground thing. Even the biggest metal bands, I mean, aside from your Metallicas and such,
apart from those ones,
but even your biggest metal bands, they're basically a lot of them work day jobs, let's be real here, because
especially these days.
So but he said to me that he goes, what he wanted to do in other genres of music, because he managed a bunch of bands, Matty J was his name. Not Matty James from
Vulgarites.
Yeah, not Matty James from Vulgarite, but he's a cool dude as well. And sets
Yeah,
up
shout out to Matty.
Spliffs and Riffs coming up.
Yeah,
so
that's
get
another
onto
one
that
mentioned as well. It's in March, I believe.
Yeah, Spliffs and Riffs Festival, so get onto that. Matty James, shout out. But yeah, Matty J said to me, he goes, what I wanted to do for like other genres of music for bands I manage was try to create that community that metal has, because he said with metalheads, and he was generalizing here, and I denied it, but I mean, he was right. He said with metalheads, it's basically their whole identity. It's who they are.
Yeah.
And that is true for a lot of us, I guess. I denied it, of course, while I was sitting there in my Fear Factory shirt, dressed in all black with my dreadlocks and tattoos, and you could pick it from a mile away.
I think what that is because you're afraid of like being labelled or whatever by other people.
I was just messing with him. Like, he was 100%. I knew it at the time, but like he was right. Like, because you can go anywhere in life, and like a lot of times you can spot a metalhead. There's weekend metalheads. They go to work and you can't tell during the week, but then on the weekend, bam, on goes that black shirt.
Yeah, that's it.
And but there are people. It's always funny when we see another metalhead in the shopping center or whatever, and you sort of give him the nod. Well. Yeah, you give him the nod, like cool Slayer shirt or whatever. Metal.
I've been in other countries where like the same mentality, no matter what country you go to, like where I remember wearing a Toxic Holocaust shirt in New York once, thinking no one would ever pick up on a band like Toxic Holocaust, and sure enough, someone went, cool band, cool shirt, It was like,
exactly.
That metalhead community, like thinking, mentality, whatever you want to call it.
It's global.
It's an amazing thing, and like that's something that I think non-metalheads don't quite understand.
Yeah, and again, because, and there are other artists out there, I'm not going to say that don't have sort of communities, like some of those big artists, like I would say something like Taylor
I'll be honest,
Swift
I'm a little ignorant to that kind of world, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, say Taylor Swift, as far as I can see.
Swifties, I believe they're called, right?
Yeah, she has the Swifties, and they have a community around that. They make
that would be a massive community.
They make friendship bracelets and do all sorts of stuff. I'm not saying we should start doing that in metal, but by all means, if you want to make friendship bracelets, but so there are, but like most other genres of music probably, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I guess there would be like hardcore. Obviously, but that's a heavier, maybe the heavier genres, like hardcore, they had definitely with the New York.
I do wonder about like maybe the hip hop scene. They might have a bit of that,
they probably definitely have a community, but you would definitely like in say just general pop music, you wouldn't have
not as much. I wouldn't think, no,
or a scene.
But see, that's because of that mainstream wider appeal. It's harder to have a community when it's kind of like because that sort of appeals to more of a casual music listener, whereas metal is kind of more for like people who are really passionate about music.
Metalheads seek music.
That's right.
They don't just listen to what's on.
If you don't seek it, it's not going to come to you. You know what I mean? So I think the story is the same for everyone. Like the music that you got into, as far as metal is concerned, 100% you probably went out and sought for it. Like you were looking for it.
Oh, definitely.
So or you were turned onto it by someone or something, and then wanted more of it and went, all right, let's go. And
that's where you get involved in the scene, because eventually you're like looking for, because that's what happened. I mean, that's what happened to me. Is like you start going to like JB Hi-Fi or whatever, buying CDs, and then you get into more obscure bands, and you have to like order the CDs in. Then you get online and you just order it in. Once
the internet thing happened, that kind of opened doors as far as discovering music.
And then eventually you're like, this is cool. I've got a bunch of CDs, but I wouldn't mind seeing some live music. And like I said, especially here in Perth, back then anyways, we didn't get so many international tours over here. We got a few, and it's got better. Like, people who complain about how it's used to be better back in the day.
I'm one of them, but like, I totally understand though.
But there's still heaps of bands coming. But anyways, but so you start going to the local gigs because you don't want to wait 4 months to the next international gig or whatever. That being said, there are plenty of international gigs coming up now. Should we start?
Just mention them quickly because we want to wrap this up fairly soon. But
oh no, I've got to put my glasses on here, people.
Don't worry about it. Everyone wears glasses now.
I had to get glasses early last year. I had to admit it. Actually, January's pretty stacked now.
That's what I mean. There's a lot happening in January.
You got Mork from Norway, black metal. If you get into that, January 19th in Perth. Till Lindemann for fans of Rammstein, as I was mentioning before.
Yes.
Till Lindemann's got a solo show January 22nd at Metropolis Perth. Metropolis Perth, I believe.
Yep.
And then that's 22nd, so you got 17th, 19th. So it's like literally every 2 days. 17th, 19th, 22nd. Jan 24th, Froth and Fury Festival.
Froth and Fury.
That's going to be massive. seriously, get your tickets. Support that festival.
Yep.
I cannot stress that enough.
FrothandFuryFest.com, I believe. I think it's on the actual. We'll put a link in the thing below anyway.
Yeah,
but
frothandfuryfest.com.
Yeah.
Cool. Get your tickets from there. You can also get merch from them as well and such. So
so festival shirts and all that stuff. So,
support. And when you go to the festival, support your bands by buying merch because let's be real, that's where a lot of bands get their money from these days.
Very true.
So that's 2 days later, and then there's some stuff coming up in February as well.
February's got a lot as well.
We got Head PE and Non-Point for your new metal fans there. February 10th, I think that's the Rosemount.
I think so. Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but I think it's the Rosemount. Lacuna Coil, February 19th as well.
Yep. That's a Magnet House, I believe.
So those are some of the shows and tours coming up. Obviously, we'll report on more at the next podcast.
Oh, I'll just not till later in the year, but Catatonia are coming down as well.
Oh, yes.
We want to give a shout out to DRW Entertainment.
Yep.
October 11th. So check them out as well and buy tickets for that one. It's a long time coming, but if you got your pre-sales now, it means you're supporting the show and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
that's another thing we can definitely say is sometimes you see that tours will cancel a certain date or they'll cancel the whole tour because they're not selling enough tickets because basically the cost of touring is ridiculous post-COVID. I mean, it was ridiculous before, but it's ridiculous
now. I have
now.
heard the arguments like, oh, we were planning on going, but we're going to buy tickets like last minute. But it's like the promoters need to have some guarantee that the show is going to sell well, and that's why the pre-sales are there.
Industry tip. You need need to get into those pre-sales to support them because otherwise, if they think that there's too much of a risk of them not making their money back or breaking even, they will cancel.
It's really crucial, really important. That's why Perth has been skipped out a lot of the tours because of those pre-sales, and Perth obviously been notorious for I
understand the argument because a lot of people will say
totally get it as well.
Why would I buy tickets? Because just in case they do cancel, and I'm like,
it's sort of like
it's catch-22.
It is exactly.
You got to buy the tickets to make sure they don't cancel, and I understand cost of living and all that, and tickets are getting ridiculously expensive now.
I know it is
$100 plus for any gig, just about. But so there's a lot of good gigs coming up, and if you can afford to buy those tickets as early as you can to help the industry out, that's it for shows for February that we've got here. Do you want to talk about releases coming out?
Yeah, I think there's only one that I know that's definitely coming out in March, and we can probably touch on that because it's been announced.
We've got plenty of releases here. I got a whole list
of the other ones, for international. I was thinking just on the local front, but international and all that, definitely.
Well, we've got local releases. We'll touch on the stuff that's out now.
Right.
We've got the Depravity album that
came out late last year. And Calveth put out a single as well.
Calveth did a single.
So check that out online on their social media posts.
That's for for us Perthlings here, and people in Australia, and if you're listening internationally, get into it.
You've never heard of those bands, Depravity? Check them out. They're like a death metal sort of band.
Yeah.
Very, very technical, I guess you could say. Almost tech death almost.
Good dudes.
And Calvert, they're kind of, they're death metal, but they're kind of a different kind of death metal, I guess. They're kind of more...
so if Depravity's like it's sort of more techie death metal, still a lot of groove in it.
Yeah.
Calvath's more your old school death metal.
Yeah, a little bit more sort of groove, I guess.
Groove in it, a bit more Obituary, 6 Feet Under vibe,
and also a bit more of a sense of humor, like a Cannibal Corpse type of humor in there, I guess.
It's black macabre humor.
Yeah.
Gallows humor and such. So that's locally. So January releases that we're going to mention here that you put on this list here. January 16th, Creator crushes with a K.
Yep.
Of the World. Creator doing Crushes of the World.
I checked out a couple of singles, and it's Creator doing what Creator do. So you won't get anything brand new, but like if you love what Creator do, then you know.
I mean, they've been doing it for years. It's German thrash.
Yep.
One of the big four of German thrash.
Yeah, was it Teutonic thrash or whatever they call it? I think it is.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Speaking of thrash, one of the big four of American thrash metal. January 23rd. Megadeth,
and their last album ever.
Allegedly the last album ever.
Like Sepultura, they're calling it a day.
Yeah, a lot of really good bands calling it a day.
Yeah, I guess they're all getting older now. They're all in their 60s now. They're not getting any younger. So
Megadeth. I'm assuming they'll come and do a show. Maybe Creator will do one as well.
I'd assume they'd have to, right?
Well, Megadeth last ever. Yeah, hopefully. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But Megadeth, self-titled, last album ever. So check it out. February releases. Here we go. Also from Perth, February 6th. Carnival.
Yes, I only just found this out recently. Actually, that they got a new album coming out.
Yeah, they got a new album coming out, first one in years. So check that out. Carnival, if you get into them. Shout out to the boys from Perth. February 6th, also Black Metal Mayhem.
Oh yeah, yep.
Liturgy of Death. I think that's how you say it.
Something like that.
February
yeah.
6th, Mayhem. Old school black metal.
Black metal.
I mean, if you know black metal, you know Mayhem. So you know what you're going to get.
They're one of the the instigators of all that stuff. So.
Definitely. Oh, look at this. I thought these guys were gone. February 13th, Converge, Love Is Not Enough.
Yeah, apparently they got something
that?
coming out. So I only discovered that one recently as well. So I thought
No
I'd have to
idea,
mention.
though. Yeah, I thought that would... Okay, fair enough. Converge for your fans of Converge. February 20th, Silosis, The New Flesh. Now, I saw Silosis last year at Metropolis Fremantle. It was awesome.
Never seen them before. So they good or?
Solid, yeah. Really good. February 27th, Rob Zombie. You all know Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
The Great Satan. So that's February 27th. We do have a March release. Local boys. Vanta, March 13th. Perpetual Selection.
Yeah.
My friends in Vanta. Shout out to Ferdinand and the boys. Check them out. They're a great band from here, right here in Perth. I don't really know how to describe them. Every time I see them, it's like blackened.
They've been sort of described as a bit melodic death metal, but I guess there's a bit more to it.
Death metal.
Yeah,
but
something like that.
You got to check it out. It's death metal-ish, death metal adjacent, I would say.
Yeah.
But there's a definitely massive tinge of that black metal sort of.
A little bit, yeah. But I wouldn't definitely call them a black metal.
No, they're
band
not a
at all,
black metal band. Again, I like it because they are mixing genres, taking different genres and
Yeah.
black and melodic death metal. If you had to give it a genre, maybe.
Yeah. Now you're starting to mix different words and stuff.
Oh, but it's true, man. It's because they're not a black metal band. They're not a melodic death metal band. They're not a death metal band.
At some point, we have to just go. All right, enough already. It's just all heavy metal.
Yeah,
you know
but
what
if
I mean?
you do that, then you can't describe it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
If you just start calling everything metal.
But it's just crazy how so many different subgenres are out there. It's like I can't keep up with all of it. In all honesty,
Well, that's why when I always joke with all this filth, I call this industrial groovecore.
Groovecore, yeah.
Because we grew a bit of groove metal with industrial tinges.
I had a bunch of words and then add core at the end of it, I guess.
Well, no, I like a bit of hardcore. There's a bit of hardcore punk in there as well, like New York hardcore. I'm talking.
All right, I think that's a good time to wrap it up.
Yeah, we've tried to guilt people into coming to gigs enough. Yeah,
no, I think we had a good sort of first episode here for Hornography's podcast. But in whatever platform you're listening to this, if it's on Spotify or YouTube, comment below or whatever.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you've got any suggestions or there's bands you want to make us aware of, or
definitely.
there's bands you want to see at Hornography, let us know. Let us know what you think. If you'd like us to shift the format a bit, because we are just making this up as we go.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, we're all here to support the local scene. If you've got gigs coming up, let us know. We will promote it. You got an album coming out, let us know. We will promote it. Whether international, national, Western Australian, we're all about metal. We're all about the heavy music. So just let us know, and thanks for tuning in, basically.
Yeah. So before we go, so keep in mind, January 24th, Froth and Fury at HPC Stadium in Mount Claremont. And January 31st, Hornography, first show of the year at Milk Bar.
At the Milk Bar. And who's on the first Hornography show?
First Hornography, all right, let's go.
Here we go.
Right. Dripped, Bile Cannon, Cytopia, Oxen, Slaughter the Soul. In that order as well. So.
Big shout out to my boy Jared and Ewan in Dripped. They're a two-piece now, so check that out. Two-piece.
Two-piece. I think Bile Cannon's also a two-piece. Yep. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting night, I think. So
yeah, the week after Froth and Fury, go to Froth and Fury, make some new friends, bring in the Hornography, and come chat to us there. We'll be there. We'll be there every month.
We'll be there.
We're there every month. So come hit us up, meet some new people, get involved, because the more you get involved with the things you're passionate about, the better your life will be. I can guarantee that 100%. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Cool. And so thank you as always for supporting Hornography, and we will see you at the next show.
Cheers, guys.